This tape is copy protect encoded. Attempts to duplicate will damage this tape and may damage the heads on your VCR. Copy protect may cause the picture on your television to roll. To correct, adjust the tracking on your VCR. The FBI enforces criminal copyright infringement laws.
My name is Don Chu. The tape you're about to see is based on speed development. You're going to see exercises utilizing resistance training, plyometrics, medicine ball exercises, and various running drills to help enhance the athlete's preparation for speed training. From a theoretical standpoint, speed of movement in running is largely dependent upon two factors, stride length and stride frequency. Stride frequency is generally considered to be largely fiber type dependent. If an individual is endowed with a large number of fast twitch fibers, they are said to have an advantage in the quality and speed of muscle contraction. It is an often accepted concept that little can be done to change the status of the individual who does not have the right fiber makeup. Stride length, however, is seen as a factor in speed development that can be altered. After all, the fewer strides you take to cover the same distance run by an athlete with greater stride frequency will result in your ability to offset stride frequency with stride length. Stride length is largely dependent upon the individual's ability to develop force against the ground. Both of these schools of thought are somewhat simplistic in their view. Every athlete does have their genetic potential. The question really becomes, how does the athlete maximize their ultimate potential? If speed of movement is a factor that can be altered, we must look at the many components that go into the development of the sprinter. First on the list might be those we attribute to motor development, the coordination of arms and legs for running efficiently, the development of the proper metabolism, and the development of strength in the extremities must begin at an early age. Speed development should begin at ages 6 to 9. If we are to capture the skills for speed during the proper window of time, this concept must be adhered to. This does not mean the athlete has to demonstrate world record times at this age, but more importantly should begin to develop the skills of skipping, bounding, and leaping that are known to be related to the development of physical traits associated with speed of running. Running drills should be taught the younger athletes prior to the beginning of strength training. These are skilled movements that the more mature track athlete uses for warm-up and rehearsal. These movements incorporate the use of the extremities in a way that they simulate or emphasize the movements of sprinting. Among the more popular exercises are marching drills. During marching drills, the athlete attempts to dorsiflex the ankle, in other words, bring the toe up, keep the ankle in line with the supporting leg, and bring the thigh to parallel position. Arms should be cycled in a reciprocal manner, just as if they were in fact running. In form running, the athletes attempt to spend a short period of time on the ground, bring the thighs to the parallel position, and basically simulate the same movements as they did during the marching. Marching drill 2. Athlete takes a position on the toes, flexes the hip, extends the knee, and snaps the leg down. The emphasis here is on the pull-down phase, maximally utilizing the musculature of the hamstrings and the hip. The athlete should stay on the toes and pull the foot down rapidly onto the toe as it makes contact with the ground. Heel kicks. The athlete leans forward and accelerates the arms and the legs in a fashion so that the heels are brought up, striking the buttocks. Skipping. The athlete assumes a position much as in the marching and the form running drills and pops off of the toe, extending and driving themselves in a vertical position. At the same time, the thigh is brought forcefully to the parallel position. Power skipping. Both hands are held in front of the athlete. The athlete skips and reaches forward with the toe, attempting to touch the hands with the toe. The athlete is trying to extend the ankle, plantar flex the foot, and get good triceps surae development. Single leg drive. The athlete attempts to isolate one leg, skipping forward and driving the thigh on that side alone. This allows for the development of the musculature so that one can detect imbalances or differences from one side to the other. As the athlete works the opposite side of the body, it will become apparent if there are imbalances in strength or coordination between each body side. Carioca. This motion is intended to develop the hip musculature and the control of the internal and external rotators of the hip. The motion includes a crossing of the legs, one in front of the other, and rapid foot movement so that the hips are rotated while the upper body stays facing in the same direction. Side slide with big arm swing. This allows the athlete to warm up and develop the lateral hip musculature. The arm swing is coordinated with the lower leg movements. Two-step slide, one step back. This particular exercise is useful for those athletes who are involved in change of direction sports, i.e. basketball, tennis players, and other racket sports. The purpose of this particular exercise is to develop the off leg so that it gets used to posting and pushing. This forces the athlete to reverse or change direction quickly. Hurdle drills. Leg circles over the top of a hurdle are excellent exercises for developing the hip flexors as well as the adductor and abductor musculature of the hip. These hurdle drills are performed in both directions with circles over the top of the hurdle, foot coming briefly to rest at the ground level, and then a reverse in the direction of the movement. Reach and extend. Another exercise intended to develop the hip flexors and also to develop the control within the adductor and abductor musculature of the hip. Tremendous abdominal muscle control is also involved in this particular exercise. The athletes bring the knee forward from the hip and then extend the leg at the level of the hurdle, retract or flex the knee, and bring the foot back to the ground or resting position. Each of these exercises is performed on the opposite leg and may be performed for anywhere from 12 to 15 repetitions. Trail leg drills. This drill is performed by the athlete leaning into the wall with the hurdle placed approximately 3 feet away from the wall. The athlete circles the trail leg, bringing it down so that the toe brushes the ground, then moving the leg horizontally over the top of the hurdle. As the knee drives forward, the knee is brought back into its normal running position, and then the leg extended and the exercise repeated. This exercise is performed with both legs over the edge of the hurdle, and is a tremendous developer of abductor strength and control. The support leg should be kept extended so that the gastroc is involved in support and is also used in plantar flexion of the foot. Tempo runs. Tempo runs are begun with the athletes in a forward-leaning position, flexing the hip, bringing the thigh forward to an almost parallel position. Motions are done in a systematic, rhythmical manner, controlled in tempo. Upon command, the coach will ask the athletes to increase the tempo or accelerate the motion until finally breaking into a full-speed run against the wall. These runs may be continued for up to 30 seconds in time. Heel kick tempo runs. The athletes begin in a forward-leaning position, keeping the thigh fairly straight. The heel is brought to the buttocks area with maximum knee flexion. Again, the tempo runs begin on the coach's command, accelerate, and then break into a full, fast, tempoed run. From a biomechanical perspective, sprinting is first dependent upon the ability of the athlete to overcome their own inertia. In other words, start strength is an important quality necessary for the athlete to develop. The ability to push against the ground rapidly and to overcome your own inertia is known as start strength. This is not just a function of leg strength. Since most starts begin from a crouch position, it is important to develop all the musculature associated with the start position. Most often overlooked in the development of the sprinter is the strength of the low back musculature. Trunk extension is one of the first and foremost movements when starting from the crouch position. Therefore, the following exercises are pointed at this area. The Romanian deadlift, an exercise which concentrates on the low back area. In this particular lift, the athlete assumes the deadlift position with the bar at the thigh hang level, just strictly above the knees, holding it for a pause of 2 seconds and then coming to an upright position. This isolates the low back musculature and allows the development of the sacrospinalis and the gluteal muscles. The good morning exercise. In this particular exercise, the most important factors are slight extension of the spine, flexion of the hips and knees, and then movement of the hips in a posterior direction until the upper body comes to a near parallel position. In this particular exercise, the knees are never brought to a full extended position, and the pressure of the lift is maintained by the low back musculature. This exercise works the hamstrings specifically for speed development. As the athlete moves from the down position, hip extension occurs simultaneously with knee flexion. This is the specific way that the hamstring muscle works when sprinting. The seated good morning is an excellent exercise for development of the lower back musculature. In this particular exercise, the bar is rested across the top of the shoulders, and the athlete maintains a slightly extended position of the spine. As she moves forward into a flexed position, the spine is maintained in extension and should never be rounded or allowed to move out of that position. Walking lunges. The walking lunge is performed in such a way that the athlete moves forward as they perform lunges on alternating legs. The thigh should be brought to the parallel position with the floor. The back knee should be almost touching, but not quite, and the athlete moves over the supporting leg without complete extension of that leg. This action results in the athlete almost rolling over the supporting leg. The upper body and torso should be kept upright, and this exercise should be initiated with a fairly light weight, such as the Olympic bar. The emphasis here is on stabilization and control as the athlete moves through each phase of the exercise. The seated row exercise is performed so that the athlete is extending the arms and reaching forward and pulling the resistance back into the abdominal area. This exercise is intended to stress the upper thoracic musculature. This is very necessary for shoulder stabilization during speed development activities. The reverse lunge. The reverse lunge is intended to develop the thigh musculature, the quadriceps, and also the abductor and adductor musculature, which sprinters need for stabilization. The athlete starts with 2 feet approximately shoulder width apart and then steps back with 1 foot until he drops into a position in which the thigh is parallel with the ground. The knee is always kept behind the toe or over the toe. The knee should never be allowed to move in front of the toe when this exercise is performed. In this particular exercise, the athlete drops the ball straight down between the legs and then throws the ball back over the head explosively, sharply extending the spine. The dive start is a total explosive activity. The athlete assumes their basic start position and then explodes forward, landing on a cushioned surface. The athlete should come to the set position and then immediately push with both legs in a forward motion. An established fact about decreased sprint times is that as the athlete gets faster, they spend less time in contact with the ground, yet develop tremendous forces against the ground surface. This time, measured from the onset of eccentric contraction forces, or foot contact, to the time of onset of concentric contractions, known as push-off, is often referred to as the amortization phase. The forces known as impulse forces developed against the ground are then used to project the athlete across the ground. The result may be greater stride length and, with reduced ground contact time, faster stride frequency. In order to continue the development of start speed and acceleration capability, the athlete must produce strength forces at a high level. The strength comes from resistance training, which develops force tension within muscle groups specific to sprinting. These may be developed in specific body areas as follows. The parallel squat is an exercise designed to increase hip extension strength and power, as well as quadricep and hamstring work. This particular exercise is performed in such a way that as the weight is lowered, this is a controlled movement and the knees do not pass in front of the toes. The inverted leg press allows for complete stabilization of the back and eliminates stress on the low back area. As the hips are extended and the knees are extended, both the hamstrings and the gluteals receive a large amount of work. Also, the calf group can be involved if the athlete pushes through the toes into the resistance so that the ankles are actually extended. To emphasize the hamstring during the step-up exercise, which is very important for speed development and the athlete's ability to pull themselves over the foot in the stance phase of running, the athlete starts with the foot in a dorsiflex position, toe up, and digs in with the heel as they pull over the top of a 12 to 18-inch box. The added resistance on the back of the athlete increases the intensity of the exercise. The standing hamstring curl is a functional exercise in which the athlete stabilizes themselves by leaning against a post or similar object, balances the pelvis, keeping it in an upright and slightly forward position. Then, by using a weighted device around the ankle, the knee is flexed, the heel is brought sharply towards the buttocks area. The supporting leg should remain straight at all times. Split squat. This position is one in which the knee is flexed to 90 degrees. The knee will not move in front of the toe during the course of this exercise. The back is held in an upright position and the body is lowered in a vertical plane. Resistance is held against the shoulders in the upper back area, and the movement of the athlete is basically straight up and straight down. The front squat allows the athlete to develop more of the quadriceps musculature. In this particular situation, the bar is racked, the elbows are held in a position where the upper arm is parallel to the ground. The athlete lowers themselves in a vertical position, and again, the knees do not pass in front of the toes. The back in this exercise should not be allowed to round out in the down position. The front lunge is performed from a 2-foot standing position. The athlete steps forward with a stride large enough so that there is a definite vertical displacement of the body. Again, however, the knee should be kept behind the toe, and this is largely dependent upon length of the stride. The athlete moves forward, controlling the descent, and emphasizes the pushback to the standing position. In this way, the hamstrings and the gluteal muscles are again challenged in a way that is complementary with speed development. The split jerk exercise starts from the shoulder rest position. The athlete drives the bar vertically and drops underneath the bar in a split position. This exercise may be performed in such a way that the legs can be alternated as to which leg is the forward foot. Recovery should always take place as in a normal Olympic lift. The footwork should be a step back with the front foot and a step forward with the back foot. Step-ups in which there is an emphasis on extension of the knee are performed in such a way that the athlete stands close to the box, steps forward, and drives themselves vertically. Alternating legs allows the athlete to work both sides so that emphasis can be placed on one leg over the other if a specific weakness is detected in this area. Calf raise exercises are exercises performed specifically for the gastroc-soleus complex. In this exercise, the athlete starts with the feet in the below parallel position, in which the heels actually rest below the bar, and then drives upward onto the toes in a plantar flex position of the ankle. This exercise can be varied by positioning the foot in different ways. The seated calf raise isolates the soleus muscle. By eliminating the knee extension component, the gastroc muscle will not work as efficiently in this position, and the emphasis is on the postural or soleus muscle in the lower leg. This exercise is an excellent exercise for developing stabilization musculature in the lower leg. Dorsiflexion exercises. These exercises are intended to stress the anterior compartment muscles of the lower leg. This is a very often overlooked area, and it's an area which is very important in the athlete's ability to pull themselves over the foot during running. High pulls. This particular exercise is designed to be a total body exercise, utilizing the ability of the body to explode in an upward direction. The athlete starts with the exercise in the thigh hang position and then may move to a below the thigh position for the complete pull motion. The push press is an exercise intended to generate power development out of the entire body. The hips and the knees are utilized to initiate the movement of the bar overhead. This particular exercise is a good precursor exercise to doing the front squat to a push press or the power clean with a push jerk. The front squat to push press is a total body exercise. The front squat is first executed. The athlete pauses briefly and then drives the bar vertically overhead using a slight flexion of the hips and knees. The position overhead is held for a pause, and then the bar is lowered to the shoulder position and the movement is repeated. The power clean is a total body exercise. In this particular exercise, the bar is brought from the positioned just below the knees up to the shoulder rest position. There are basically different segments of this particular movement broken down into a first pull and second pull positions. For further specific instructions on Olympic lifting, the viewer is advised to refer to specific training tapes on Olympic lifting available through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Strength or force tension development is not enough to develop speed of movement. Resistance work alone cannot produce the results desired by coach or athlete. Plyometrics are exercises which incorporate the use of the physiological components of muscle to produce faster and more forceful muscle contractions. The so-called stretch shortening cycle utilizes the myotatic reflex of muscles and the serial elastic components to produce contraction times with rapid movements. For the sprint athlete, the issue becomes the optimizing of training time. The term optimal strength has been used to describe the strength level necessary to accomplish a certain goal, beyond which excess force development of muscle is of little value. Sprinting is dependent, as stated before, upon overcoming one's body weight in starting, acceleration, and transition to absolute speed. Therefore, it would appear the desired level of strength for sprinting is somewhat less than the absolute maximal, which is performed at relatively slow speeds. Thus, systems known as complex training and contrast training in the early European writings can be extremely useful in providing a method of developing maximal results in minimal amounts of time. These systems employ resistance training that alternates with plyometric training. The advantages of this system is that they provide for effective results in short training cycles, variety in training programs, and more specific programs related to anatomy and function. The following is a sample of how resistance training and plyometrics can be integrated into an effective training program. Power squats are often combined with box-to-box depth jumps to achieve maximal explosiveness in the hip and gluteal area. Maintaining the mechanics of proper squatting, the athlete then transfers these particular drills to the boxes. In this particular case, the athlete steps forward off the box, drops to the ground, and explodes vertically to another box of equal height. The front lunge is performed from a 2-foot standing position. The athlete steps forward with a stride large enough so that there is a definite vertical displacement of the body. Again, however, the knee should be kept behind the toe, and this is largely dependent upon length of the stride. The athlete moves forward, controlling the descent, and emphasizes the pushback to the standing position. In this way, the hamstrings and the gluteal muscles are again challenged in a way that is complementary with speed development. The split squat shuffle is a low-intensity plyometric exercise which is intended to teach the athlete to be reactive from a split leg position. In this particular exercise, the athlete starts with a fairly narrow movement and extends to a larger movement and finally to a split squat or lunge position, and then returns from that position up to the vertical again. This movement sequence is repeated 3 times. The inverted leg press allows for complete stabilization of the back and eliminates stress on the low back area. As the hips are extended and the knees are extended, both the hamstrings and the gluteals receive a large amount of work. Also, the calf group can be involved if the athlete pushes through the toes into the resistance so that the ankles are actually extended. Hurdle hops. Hurdles are set in such a way that the athlete traverses directly over the top of the hurdles with minimal landing in between. The athlete flexes the knees and the hips so that their clearance can be achieved, and the arms are utilized to help to lift the athlete from the ground. Again, emphasis is on a minimal time spent between each hurdle and on the ground. Calf raise exercises are exercises performed specifically for the gastroc-soleus complex. In this exercise, the athlete starts with the feet in the below parallel position, in which the heels actually rest below the bar, and then drives upward onto the toes in a plantar flex position of the ankle. This exercise can be varied by positioning the foot in different ways. Ankle hops are designed to improve the ballistic reactive ability of the foot against the ground. In this exercise, as the athlete moves forward, the ankle is extended and the knees are maintained in extension. This exercise can be performed on both feet as well as on a single leg. In each case, only the ankle does the pushing and the foot is attempted to be pulled up in between each movement or landing. The knee should be maintained in extension throughout this exercise. The seated calf raise isolates the soleus muscle. By eliminating the knee extension component, the gastroc muscle will not work as efficiently in this position, and the emphasis is on the postural or soleus muscle in the lower leg. This exercise is an excellent exercise for developing stabilization musculature in the lower leg. The wave squat. The wave squat consists of 3 small forward hops followed by a squat jump. The first 3 jumps are intended to develop the ankles and the knees in a small range of motion. As the athlete moves forward into the final jump, a greater range of motion is utilized and the athlete attempts to explode vertically. The 5-5-5 series of squats consists of 5 slow squats, 5 quick squats, and 5 squat jumps. In this position, the athlete extends the spine slightly, moves the hips into extension so that there is a degree for degree bend at the hip and at the knee. This places the knees at or over the toes, but does not allow the knees to move in front of the toes so that excessive shear force is not encountered. This is followed by quick squats, in which the athlete quickly drops into the position and then is followed by squat jumps. The seated row exercise is performed so that the athlete is extending the arms and reaching forward and pulling the resistance back into the abdominal area. This exercise is intended to stress the upper thoracic musculature. This is very necessary for shoulder stabilization during speed development activities. The pullover toss is performed so that the athlete catches the ball, immediately sits back, and throws the ball on the return in one single sit-up motion. One-armed rows. This particular exercise is useful for developing the upper back and the tricep area of the sprinter. This motion is definitely specific to the sprint action that the runner will use. The elbow is brought to a position so that the shoulder extends beyond the level of the body. The weight is kept fairly close to the body and the elbow is brought up so that it is nearly in line with the trunk. The dumbbell arm swing is an exercise intended to develop power output of the shoulder musculature of the sprinter. This exercise is begun at a fairly slow tempo, and as the speed of movement is increased, power output is also increased. The athlete is asked to begin this exercise in a seated position with the elbows held at approximately 90 degrees and the swing generated from the shoulder area. This exercise should be performed in 30-second segments. High pulls. These exercises are explosive movements taken from the thigh rest position to a shoulder height. This particular exercise is designed to be a vertically explosive movement in which the hips and the thighs are used in a way similar to sprinting. This strength exercise is very often coupled with a backward medicine ball throw. In this particular exercise, the athlete drops the ball straight down between the legs and then throws the ball back over the head explosively, sharply extending the spine. By utilizing the arousal developed during resistance training and complementing a particular lift with a plyometric type activity, maximal speed of muscle contraction can be developed through this system. The body is then better prepared to undergo the rigors of sprint training on the track. As the techniques of training on the track are implemented, many of the same concepts of complex training can be used. Training runs using a resistance such as a sport kite, uphill runs, and runs against surgical tubing provide for maximal efforts, and these may be followed then by assisted runs with surgical tubing, downhill sprints, flying 30s with rolling starts can all be combined to develop the complex or contrast training for sprint development. Use of the sports kite in starting allows the development of resistance against the runner as they start from a three-point stance in this particular case. As soon as the athlete starts, the kite fills with air and provides resistance to the athlete running. The sport kite may also be utilized in the transition phase of running, so that the athlete builds into a certain phase and then maximally sprints against resistance. The trailing kite is designed to eliminate any problems with arm action and to provide straight line resistance with the runner. Runs against surgical tubing, in which an athlete provides resistance as the sprinter drives forward. Resistance from surgical tubing can be utilized in movements other than simply straight ahead. In this particular case, the athlete moves side to side with the surgical tubing providing resistance to this motion. The coach moves slowly forward, providing maximal resistance to the runner. Uphill runs can provide an excellent means of resistance to the sprinter as they work into the upward sloped portion of the hill. Forward lean start. The athlete stands with both feet parallel, leans as far forward as they can until their center of gravity moves out of their base of support. This tends to pull the athlete forward, and then they accelerate as soon as they feel themselves falling forward into a full sprint. Assisted starts with surgical tubing can be performed with the coach providing a moderate amount of tension to the surgical tubing as the athlete accelerates forward. The responsibility of the coach is to keep the cord from becoming entangled in the starter's legs. Direct lateral movements can also be controlled using surgical tubing or bungee cords to provide resistance. This strictly lateral movement becomes assistive when the athlete gets to the end of the range of motion and the cord actually helps them to initiate movement in the opposite direction. Downhill runs. These runs are assisted runs by the nature of the terrain. The athlete finds a gently declining slope and moves forward rapidly sprinting as fast as they can on the downward surface. Flying 30s. This exercise is intended to allow the athlete to work on absolute speed. The 30 yards are measured and timed after the athlete achieves a roll-in or rolling start into the first mark. This build-up should occur over a 30 to 40 meter or yard stretch.